Welcome to the Consulting Leaders Podcast, where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Guillaume Jouvencel, ex-PwC and co-founder of GHA Marketing. Join me as I interview the best consultants in their niche. Let's get on with the show. Roderick, I'm a huge fan of Harvey Specter, and when I see your profile, I'm like, how does one go from law, communications, and now strategic consulting for B2B services company? Like, what's the story behind that?
Yes, I think a part of this goes back to people at in careers offices back when I was at school, having no idea there were jobs like half the jobs I've done. The very top line answer is I got into corporate law. I thought it was exciting and different. I did that in Scotland and London, tried various flavors, and realized I wanted to get a little closer to the deal rather than just package it. I was probably a little impatient. I did an MBA at Cranfield to get out of that. What's quite interesting is arriving at Cranfield, where they already start your post-MBA career planning, saying, welcome, Roderick, you're a lawyer, you've got no P&L experience, go back and be a better lawyer, which was a bit of a kick in the teeth. But wasn't actually the case. I managed to come out and find another professional services line. This was strategic communications, investor relations. So I joined Brunswick Group, initially on the management side, and then started doing some client work and ended up continuing to do a bit of both in London and Joburg, and then post financial crisis back in London. Wherever I'd been involved in building the businesses I've been working in. So when I met some individuals who were in business coach consulting that had a methodology that came out of funds management, and that really struck me because I've always been around whether it's deals or valuation or an investor story, and this was really attractive to me because it helped me unpin some of the elements and then be able to have a very different conversation, because investors and operators are very different animals, and that perspective is I find to be very, very useful, very interesting, and that's been the last 15 years or so.
I like that. So arriving here, when a founder of a 2 to let's say 14 million pound firm comes to you, what problem are they trying to solve? What is it that you help them with?
So it's quite interesting, and picking those numbers, the 2 and 14 as brackets, quite deliberate. Below that level, we're in the world of the micro business, and most businesses don't get past $1 million, euros, pounds, whatever they are. They just they never have the confidence to punch through and hire the right people to get them through. I like to pick them up at or around that next level, and take them up on that run up to 15, 16, 17 million at the top end. So we've picked 14 million as the top bracket. When they start getting up at that top end, they're big enough. They're 150, 200 people that actually there's a whole strand of the market is dealing with those companies. The competition is a little fierce. Often there's board structures, perhaps third-party capital, venture capital, PE, and so on in place. So hence the 2 to 14, and typically there's 3 or 4 spots within that 2 or 14 where someone will come, because businesses grow really nicely, and then they stop growing for a bit. Typically that's a period of reinvestment and readjustment, and then they'll go again. Businesses don't grow in straight lines. Grow, reinvest, and grow again. So we see if they've got through that £1 million barrier, it's usually because they've hired some additional talent. They need to pay for that, so they'll go out and sell harder. Now that takes you so far, but typically at 2 million, they've only built a sales system that sells 2 million of whatever they're selling. They need to think about how they grow that sales function, how they grow the places they sell, start to open up their channels and distribution, and how they think about how they run the business a bit smarter. So typically see people a lot at that 2 million mark. If they manage to get there on their own, the next time they put up their hand and they get frustrated because they've seen good growth, they get stuck around 4 or 5 million. Again, that's a lot about that is about the culture. You move past those sort of magic numbers of 34, where you start to not be able to name everyone in the company that's working for you. It feels psychologically different. There's also you're starting to need more product, different product to sell down the channels you've created. Next one up, again, if they've cracked that, they do quite nicely. Might see them again at maybe 8-9 million. And the problem typically there is they've cracked through, they've built their sales, their channels, and got their product organized, but they're not quite sure where they're how they're showing up in the market, because they're now quite a big business. And they're competing against different people they were competing against when they were half or a tenth the size. So that's often about a bit of brand reorganization. And then the last bit, if they're coming in at 14-15 million, it's the complexity of the business that they're worried about. At that point, they've got to go from being a big, small business to a small, big business. So that's a whole new layer of management. Your board's got to be properly operating. You've got to upgrade your physical systems, your HR, your finance. You can't run it off. Well, hopefully not Excel by that stage, but even the likes of Zero start to get a bit challenged. You're up into the that next phase. That's a huge investment to make. If you get that right, you can pop on, and that next run is usually quite fast for these gazelle type businesses. So that's where I meet them. Slightly different things at each stage, but the unifier is there's just a frustration that they've kind of run out of answers and want to get things changed.
So it's interesting because the way I picture a business at £2 million a year versus a business at 10 million or even 14 million pounds a year, they are in radically different places. I'd say £2 million, you're probably still very much founder-led sale. Probably running the show, you have like a beginning of a sales team. Delivery should be fully like handed over by then. But like what you're solving for when you talk to a £2 million business versus a £14 million business is like completely different. Who is your ideal client, Roderick? Who is it that you're trying to help specifically? Like, is there an industry, a typical decision maker? Who do you decide who to work with, and who to get into the room with?
Well, clearly one of the wonderful things about working in this space is you get to work with owners, founders, managing directors who've got the capability to affect change. So you don't feel you're having to sell into some division and hope that it works its way up the chain. You've got a direct link between the work that you're doing and outcomes in the business. It's a pretty short line of communication and delivery. So that's always interesting. The nature of those people, I had a friend who used to define them as restless, which is not prepared to settle for the status quo. There's a lot of noise around scaling business and unicorns and gazelle. Sometimes a really good lifestyle business is a really good business because it fits that purpose. So, the restlessness might be, how do I just get more time back? I don't need to be much bigger. I like what I do. But how do I have less confrontation in the business, or have more time to do other things? Sometimes it's restless for growth. Sometimes it's, oh my God, I'm feeling trapped and I have to get out. Increasingly, the markets move from how do I have more fun, how do I get more time back, how do I make more money? Now it's, the clock is ticking. I need to work out how to extract equity value from this business. Can I sell it, and is my price realistic? And then just the third point that you mentioned is the sector matter. But product's really only one of the things you need to understand in business to run a good business. So I'll often have views on product, but actually it's the other 179 things that you need to focus on. Often the detail of the product, whether it's selling molecules or selling a financial service, that's less important than how they structure that product, how they think about their pricing, how they think about the positioning of that product, and those items, as opposed to the content itself. So I've been lucky enough to work across pretty most sectors. Obscure ones, bioscience, ones with kind of real technical expertise required to understand what's going on. I'll leave that to the guys that are specialists in that. But I've worked on everything from communications to furniture procurement to insurance products, all things in between.
Mm-hmm. I like that. One of the things that I want to double down on here is the lifestyle business that you mentioned. I think there is absolutely nothing wrong with having a thriving lifestyle business. And you can have a great lifestyle business. I think I wouldn't say wrong, but what's not strategic, let's say, is to either not be sure of what you're after or optimizing for the wrong thing. Because I talk to 4 to 5 B2B coaching consultants per day, and 95% of them will answer, oh yeah, I want to grow my business like yesterday. And when you ask them about the things that they did to achieve that over the last 12 months, it's like, oh, no, nothing particular. I'm like, right, so what you want and what you do seems to be pointing towards a different direction. And it's totally fine to stay at the level that you are or like grow steadily, relying on referrals and so on. But then you need to be very clear on what that goal is going to get you and the price of that goal, and vice versa. So super interesting that you'd mentioned that. So how do you get those people to find you? Because again, I feel there is like two 14 million pounds businesses. I'm forcing myself not to say dollars. There is lifetime versus exit versus, I want to become the next unicorn, whatever. What has worked for you, Roderick, to attract the attention of the right people who can work with you?
Yeah, I've just been spent a day in a room full of consultants where we've all been looking back at 2025 and where the market is and what's working. Mm-hmm. And of course, one of the perennial realizations is that SMEs are a layer, not a sector. That is for sure. And so to an extent, and it's classic kind of marketing segmentation. You think you're segmenting by going almost laterally, but actually, as you mentioned, a 2 million business in services is very different from a 14 million business in manufacturing, and so this is quite a mosaic of businesses. Over what has always worked has been the power of referral. And I'm just kind of hesitating just for a moment because I think there's a big shift going on, an evident shift going on in terms of the power of content, which I'll come on to, because you ignore that at your peril now. So the power of referral is yes, if you've done a good job for a client, you're looking for them to refer, you're looking for intermediaries to build referral networks, because people are very passionate about their business, don't like to let people in, where they've been seen to be weak by taking advice, when typically it's a thing you've got to be strong to ask and accept advice in, and to take that external perspective. So where the referrals are now more likely to come from, you've got to work on that. But we've been in the era of digital marketing for a long time now, but increasingly I'm seeing the way that content is being used is not necessarily, I've written a stellar piece on LinkedIn and there's 2 clients, although I was at a board meeting this morning that happened to 2 clients, but they've spent 9 months investing in growing their audience, reshaping what they were talking about to get the right eyeballs on that article that prompted the phone call. I think in the world of content now, you now have to have that surround of content, so people understand who you are, they can sort of audit you, work out the cut of your jib, how you approach things, the way you think, because they are much more likely to check you out rather than take it on trust and turn up and put their time aside for a cup of coffee in a busy day.
Okay, another golden gem that I need to double down on, Roderick. So thanks a lot for this. Okay, actually, before I get there, so how do you implement this? How do you do content that will not optimize for vanity metrics, but I'll actually build that ecosystem that will allow you to get clients from the content. How do you go about that?
Here is the world of cobbler's shoes, really. And I'm New Year's resolution to practice what I preach more.
Nice.
So it comes back to clarity of who you want to reach and what you want people to know about you.
Yeah.
Where you sit in the market, what your edge is. And I think I've been going back just as the tail end of year exercise, going back really who is it I want to be talking to, what are their characteristics, what is it the problem I solve for them, how do I solve that problem, how do I leave them feeling, and start to use that as a real basis for developing some messaging out. In this, we're going to talk about AI at some point, so let's get that out of the way, which is how to use that. I've been experimenting this year, very conscious. LinkedIn is a good place for me, I think, and my practice. And so I've been working quite hard at generating more LinkedIn content. And I've been using some tools to supplement that. What's interesting is some of the reaction I've been getting. Some, I think that's the machine's generated something really interesting. No response.
Yeah.
And it's that I've been going through probably the same curve a lot of people are going, which is, well, the AI will take care of 80% of it. I'll do the last 20. And it was put to me the other day that what you really need to do is it's the first 20 is AI and the next 80, where I've gone back and I've helped. I've used tools to generate ideas, but then I've taken that, and rather than just ping out a piece of content that is scheduled and something, it's sitting down and going, actually, let's take a risk. Let's get the camera out and let's just video that. Let's just talk about that content, more engaging. I've got a lovely network of very friendly critics who are keen to remind me that I need to be more engaged. I need to sort my lighting out. So it's been lovely to get that little feedback loop from those people. So that's been my journey, to focus on LinkedIn, to get better at using the tools. Authenticity is spoken out an awful lot, but there is something in that, which is we can churn out all this stuff, but actually you've got a message to say. And I've worked with enough business owners to understand their pain points and to see what happens when we go through a process and give them the business that they fall back in love with. That I staying true to that and talking about that narrower content rather than trying to paint the whole waterfront or talk to that whole layer of SMEs. That's my big learning and promise for next year. And it's advice I've been giving to clients for quite a long time without acting on it myself.
You know what we say? I think it's the cobbler's son always goes barefoot or something like this. I'm not sure of the English expression here. But so here is what I wanted to double down on. But thanks a lot for sharing this, Roderick. I think this is really, really good. So when it comes to content and building a brand as a B2B coach or consultant, right, in 2025 and more likely now 2026, you have three main pillars. And I'm saying this for people listening to us as well. Authority, right? Nobody's gonna buy from you if they don't consider you as the authority or as a subject matter expert.
Agreed.
Trust, and getting the conversation going at the right time. Those are kind of the three things that you need to put out there if you want your content to turn into clients. The problem is now there is AI, and anybody can be an expert on anything on LinkedIn now. So there is another layer that we need to add to this, which is the founder story and their actual personal experience when it relates to all those three aspects. I think you nailed it. So you can totally get business from LinkedIn. And I have like a connection. Actually, I'm going to name him Kyle Johnson, a fantastic guy. He's only writing posts on LinkedIn and he's excellent at copywriting and he's growing his business like this. So it is possible. I think it's like fighting with a hand tied in your back versus video content. You nailed it. I mean, we made the choice of going 100% live on each and every podcast because authenticity is going to win in 2026. And if you're talking to the right people, talking about the right things to the right audience, this is how you build trust, authority, get perceived as an SME, and get conversation started. I think if you have something in your content strategy that allows you to do those four, you're going to win. How do you, so that being said, because you've been recommending it to your clients, how do you move from this, right? So your clients, the CEOs, the founders, the C-suite of 2 to 14 million pounds companies, go from problem awareness, solution awareness, Roderick is there. How do you take this from awareness to a conversation and to an SOW, a letter of engagement, we rock and roll? How does sales motion look like for you?
Yeah. Well, I've asked the point to talk about some of what are either myths or truths or beliefs, depending on where you sit in the industry. So for better or worse, consulting as an approach in the SME market has a bit of a bad name. A bit of a name for, I had this guy and he borrowed my watch to tell me the time. And to an extent that will be true, because the consultant will come in, they've only got to deal with the information they have, and it's very hard to consult into a business with not no capability, but with limited capability. So there's a real sort of blend, a blended approach, which is not necessarily coaching. So coaching is one extreme, because if the essence of coaching is I ask the question, I ask questions, but it's all your knowledge. And consulting is, you can ask the questions to get the knowledge out of me. Now, somewhere in between the two, we're not both idiots. There must be a blend of that. So, well, yes, find some wood to touch. So it's about constructing a conversation. It's a really safe space conversation, which is explaining. So to get that conversation going, it's a coaching conversation, which is a listening conversation. So you're trying to establish what the factual pain points. We've got cash flow here, or we've got a difficult employee over there, or this market's not working for us anymore. Whatever the content is, but also really tuning into what the context is. Is all these things, are they being driven by are there relationship issues in the business that are driving sales problems? Is there just a lack of a clear direction? Are they kind of bickering about shareholdings because they haven't sat down and figured that out? So there's a bit of coaching conversation to listen, a bit of consulting to diagnose at the high level problems, but then very much taking a business owner at each of those levels, which is, listen, we can go through kind of a more formal diagnostic process and come in, speak to teams and really pull more of this out. But then the opportunity is always, rather than say the answer is this, here's the ring binder or the electronic equivalent of here's the 10-step process, off you go. It's about co-creating a plan with the founder and maybe her management team. Say, right, well, let's agree what the priorities are. And let's agree that this isn't a consultancy where I can come into your 10,000 person division. We bring a squad in, all with lovely sharp framed spectacles and a nice matching laptop bags. And we march in and we take over a floor, we tip tap away, and we leave some grass behind, and away we go. This is going to be a process. It's going to take some time to change the business, because we need to train in new habits. There's kind of coaching and consulting and training. It's being very vocal about those methodologies and how they're going to be used. So there's no surprises in any of these things. And then managing the cadence of engagement. If you've got say a 30 or 40 person business, they can't shut down for a week. In fact, getting a full day is probably about as much as you can get of time. You certainly don't want all 40. You need to work with some teams, but even say taking 25%, maybe 10 people out of their day-to-day jobs for a day a month is a big commitment from them, given everything else that's going on. So typically moving from this is kind of interesting, how can you help? It's a very open conversation. It's very much giving space to the business owner to step into, to get comfortable and take that on, and then to share ownership of the building of that solution, and an acknowledgement that this isn't a quick fix, not a bit of sheep dip. This is how we train in new skills, create that new vision, start to backfill, and be constantly painting that picture of where the owner, executive team, where they want to get to, and crucially, how they want to feel when they've got there.
Mm-hmm. Co-creating, I think, is for me, the key takeaway of this. Like, I couldn't agree more. I think when you make the delivery part of your sales journey, you're halfway there. Because people can not only start seeing how you work, they also start getting results. Back to content, this is also what's happening, right? It's just that it's much more, hey, do it yourself than done together with you or done for you. But like, I really, really like this philosophy of let's take the first steps together and see where that leads. Just to look back to one of the things, Roderick, because Stefania on the live stream is asking, since we're talking about how good LinkedIn is, can LinkedIn really convert? I think that based on the industry and CXO level, LinkedIn can warm up, but not close. I have some thoughts on that, but I want to hear yours first. What do you think?
I think that's pretty. In my experience, that's accurate. Depending on what you define as close. So listen, I think it's very unlikely someone through LinkedIn content is going to say, by the way, can you get going? I need this done for you at X price. For me, the close in there is the close is the opening of the relationship. It's the opportunity to sit in front of that client in a safe space and for them to really share with you what's going on with their business. Now that in itself is a close. Always take the view that if that's not the right time, they've met you, they may come back, or there might be somebody else in their network they refer you to. So for me, if the close is getting to a meeting, I think you can close. I think this isn't transactional. This is relationship based. This is a step in the process. I'm trying to move away from words like funnel and pipeline. Don't really sit very well with me, but that next stage in the courtship, maybe.
No, I like that. And so I will agree with you on the fact that, like any marketing and brand awareness channel, this is going to be a door opener. But it's still up to you to come, grab the guests, make them welcome to your home, and like build the project together. Now, when I hear this type of questions from B2B coach and consultants, also in the mastermind, I'm always trying to think: is there someone out there who is selling high tickets and who is only doing it through LinkedIn? And I can't imagine the answer to this question being no. There is absolutely nobody doing this. I'm very certain there is someone making 7, 8, potentially even more figures each and every year because they have perfectly nailed LinkedIn. The question then becomes, how long did it take them? How strong of a brand do they have? How many and how strong the case studies that they have are. So there is a whole bunch of things that are coming. But I'm pretty sure that you can do wonders with LinkedIn today. I think when you build awareness with LinkedIn, you do warm DM out of LinkedIn from the people who are interacting with your content and that you interact with, you can most certainly start conversations. But they needed hey, here is my credit card details, bill me whatever you want. It's probably not going to happen just thanks to LinkedIn. You're going to have to connect, build together, and so on.
Just one thought that occurred to me as you're going through and looking at the comments coming through. One of the interesting things, for any small business, actually, any sales activity at any scale, is are you talking to the right person? Are you qualifying out how much time you spending? Time wasters is a bit judgy, but actually, people who are sometimes you just got to be open to the conversation. You don't know where it'll go. But actually, LinkedIn is very good at shaping the audience you're reaching, seeing you get to understand where people are coming from quite fast. So I think it's interesting. It's a two-way tool. So it's not just about in you come. It's about actually I'm going to make the door or the window that size and shape, and use as a filtering tool, which of course is often. I'll take responsibility for this. I am often very poor at understanding how much time I've spent having conversations that really I should have truncated or not taken.
Yeah.
LinkedIn allows you to manage that time back.
Yeah. Amen to that. Something that's going to be interesting, I think, for you, Roderick. I mean, interesting for us from you, and it's client retention. So, how do you? Because you help your clients achieve a clear goal. Once that goal is reached, how do you keep on working with them, if at all? How do you retain customers, right? Which is, at the end of the day, in B2B coaching and consulting, one of the best levers to grow your business and make more money, as long as you provide more value to your clients, obviously. But like, how do you do that in your practice?
Okay, so I think there's two things to talk about in there. One is, what does good file management look like?
Yeah.
And two is, what's the design of that journey with the client? So I'm going to be arbitrary and take the second first. So for me, engaging with a client early on, it's quite hands-on. I'm quite in the detail. I might see them quite often. I'm effectively much more of a teacher, even though we've co-created the plan. That first phase is you're really pushing quite hard to get them going. There comes a point, might be 6-9 months in, maybe, where they're going, okay, we're getting this. So how do we work together on this next bit? It's much more that co-create. It's much more two-way. And then eventually they become confident in how change gets effected in a business.
Yeah.
And so it typically comes, okay, Roddy, just we know what we're doing with it and how to do this. Give us some of the new stuff over the top, and we'll get on and drive that. So the role for me moves inexorably from being a coach, consultant, whatever the label is, through to ultimately you do want to be that advisor who's either on the end of a WhatsApp or a quarterly walk around the park, or able to use the networks that we've all built up to refer things in. And it's a much more it's much less hands-on, time-consuming, but it's enduring. It's an enduring relationship. And I've got some that have gone on for, haven't worked with a client in a program for a while, but they maybe years, but they still keep in touch and still that. What do you think of this? And actually, that's always useful. But there's I'm trying to think what the phrase is. It's like there's an old 50s film called The Man in the White Suit. So it's not planned obscurity, but you're designing yourself out of the day-to-day, because if the client becomes dependent on you, you failed. The client has to develop those skills, those capabilities in-house. And the reason in my way for doing that is, if an investor sees that the business is being propped up by some consultant who's got no ties to the business other than the monthly check, then who's really running it? What's the value? So planned obsolescence, that's the phrase I was looking for. There's been a planned obsolescence. Now, to manage that, clearly you've got to look at your client book as a portfolio. And within that, the good file management has everything from, and some of this actually is less about the client, more about me and the people I'm working with. So it could be, what am I going to learn from this file? What's the real outcome? How do we know we've got to a certain milestone? So I can remind the client, we were going from A to G. We've done B, C, D, E. Keep going. That encouragement. Beyond there, depending on where you sit, there is kind of just giving a bit of energy back into the relationship. So providing little extras, little referrals. One of the best things of getting longevity into the relationship is proving your value early. Often saying that first 3 months, can I find a new client, a new member of staff, an introduction, something that generates enough margin to cover whatever I'm costing and get it right. You want that to cover your costs ad infinitum. So you're always just almost a free resource, because you've paid for yourself in some way. That's the key bit about file management, is remembering it's yes, you get paid to deliver a particular result, but there are things around the edges, whether that's one of the best ones when I was working in South Africa, I had a brilliant supplier, Ben from Bastion, who, it was the 5th anniversary of the office. He said, right, clear everyone's diary, get there half an hour early. And he brought in a chocolate fondue. There were 20 of us by 9 o'clock in an absolute carb coma.
I'm in.
Chocolate everywhere. And yeah, it didn't cost him a lot of money. It was a bit of thought, a bit of planning, but so memorable. And as I understand it, how many years is that now? It's 15, 16 years. He's still a supplier to that business.
Yeah.
That's how you build longevity. You make people feel special.
Mm-hmm. It's the little things that make the difference.
But the little things come out of a plan, though. Some people are very good at it, but actually you need a little quarterly ping. What have I done?
Yeah.
Rather than anyone that's spontaneously good at that just tends to have a very big visa bill.
Agreed. Roderick, maybe a bit of a curveball for you. Where is your main challenge right now? What is the nut that if you crack, you're going to be able to take your business to the next level, right? Whatever the goal is. Where do you feel challenged right now and that you're looking forward to work on in 2026 and beyond?
For me, it is around this connection with the marketplace. Mm-hmm. How to stop grumbling that it's difficult to get people in a room to turn up and difficult to get them to convert, and start to really understand how to use these fantastic tools we've been given. This opportunity to create long form content, to have a really interesting conversation. There's some, I think there's hopefully some real nuggets in here that can start to be used in different ways to stimulate conversations. Dan Priestley is very big on give away your knowledge, sell your expertise. And so for me, it is moving away from this notion in consultancy or of any kind. It's often a third. So consultants typically will spend a third of their time looking for work. They'll spend a third of the time doing the work, and then they'll spend the last third working out what the heck to do next for the clients and running around. Now, you can, if you found a methodology, and certainly in the SME space, there was no IP 15, 20 years ago. Now it's a wash in IP. Gazelles, EOS, the Sherlock stuff that I was trained in, all sorts of April Dernfeld positioning. There's fantastic content left, right, and centre. So that's taking care of itself. It's this notion of the finding the work and using almost the judo power of, right, I don't have a massive marketing budget, but what I can do is be really laser focused on who I want to reach, what I want to help them with, and how I show up as someone that can sort that problem. So that's the big one for me, is around how to engage more with content creation, to push myself a little bit more, to give it the focus it requires, and to experiment a little more.
Words to live by. Roderick, ladies and gentlemen. Roderick, if people want to find out more about you, see what you do, where should they go?
Westcliff.co is the website, or LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn, build a nice big network that I'm always both happy to grow and to allow people access into. So connect with me, and if there's someone in my network you want to reach, I'm always happy to do that.
We'll put all the links in the description. What I can say for sure is that you've gained at least one new connection on LinkedIn out of this interview, Roderick. Me, I just added you. Roderick, thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders.
Thank you, Guillaume. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.